Hey mamas, it's your girl Carrie, and welcome back to another episode of Mom Wife Career Life. This week we are talking about work. I've shared on a couple of episodes that I changed jobs right around Thanksgiving this past year, and let me just say, I do not recommend starting a new job around the holidays. It was an absolute whirlwind. It definitely took away from the season for me in ways that I didn't expect it to. But as always, I put my trust in God's timing. I also moved back into a very demanding role. And if I'm being honest, I kept telling myself that I am crazy for doing this again, but the opportunity just came at a time when I needed it. And a lot of times, growth stretches you. It's a brand new account for my company. So part of my role is building out processes, organizing systems, setting strategy, basically all the things that I actually love to do. But after coming off the holiday break, my brain was in absolute overdrive between meetings and processes and emails, things I forgot, things I wanted to improve. I was constantly thinking about work, and I started recognizing the signs of heading towards being burnt out, and not because the job wasn't right, but because I had started blurring the lines of my boundaries, and that was throwing off my work-life balance, or as one of our listeners put so beautifully, life-work balance, which I love so much more because life should always come first. And that's why we're talking about this today, how to mentally shut off work so you can be fully present in the moment. And here's the thing, sometimes mentally shutting off isn't about trying harder, it's about having better tools. And that's actually one of the reasons that I created my ChatGPT prompts for working moms, because when your brain is overloaded, you don't need more thinking, you need more support. And inside, I give you simple prompts that you could literally just copy and paste into ChatGPT that will help you plan your week in minutes, clear that mental clutter, organize your to-do list, meal plan faster, delegate mentally instead of carrying it all. It's like having a calm assistant when your brain just feels really loud. So if you're constantly thinking about work after hours or lying in bed, replaying your to-do list, go grab those prompts. The link is in the show notes because protecting your peace sometimes starts with lightening that mental load. Now, let's jump into today's episode. Are you feeling overwhelmed trying to juggle all the many hats you wear as a working mom? Do you want more quality time with your family without distraction of work, time alone to take care of yourself and your needs? Welcome to Mom Wife Career Life. I'm Carrie, a wife, a mom of three, and a recovering perfectionist. In this podcast, I will teach you how to create balance in your life by implementing healthy habits, organizing your home and your schedule, being so intentional with your time and in your relationships, and most importantly, how to start putting your needs first because no one can pour from an empty cup. Grab that second cup of coffee, or if you're anything like me, your third. It's time to dive into today's episode of Mom Wife Career Life. I know you've been there. You log off, you shut the laptop, you walk out of the office. So why is your brain still in the meeting it was not invited to? If you've ever sat on your couch with your family while mentally drafting that email, or laid in bed replaying something you said in a meeting that is just making you cringe, or made dinner while worrying about what you forgot to do during the day, this episode is for you. Because today we're talking about mental boundaries, not just calendar ones. And before we get into strategies, we really need to normalize something. Most working moms don't overthink because they're being dramatic, or they're anxious, or they're bad at relaxing. We overthink because we actually care about our job and our performance. We're responsible. We're used to carrying a lot. And our brains are just trained to stay alert. And when work thoughts follow us home, it's not a failure. It's just your conditioning. And the goal isn't to force your brain to stop thinking. The goal is to teach you when it's safe to rest. So let's jump into my tips to help you reset those mental boundaries. And we're starting with number one. I want you to understand that logging off physically is not the same as logging off mentally. And this is a major mindset shift. Most moms think I should be able to just stop thinking about work, but your brain doesn't respond to that should. It responds to cues, especially if you're in a leadership role, if you carry a lot of responsibility, or if you're like me and you work from home. Your brain doesn't automatically recognize that the workday is over just because you close your laptop. And if you've been problem solving for 8 hours, it doesn't just power down on command. So instead of being frustrated with yourself, I want you to try to reframe it. Mental boundaries don't happen automatically. They're created intentionally, a common theme in the show, being intentional. And that's why those transition routines or rituals matter. They signal to your brain, we're done now. Number two, create a work to home transition. Your brain needs that clear signal that says we're done for the day. And if you commute, that commute becomes your bridge. Now, if you're on public transportation and you truly need to wrap up those one or two loose ends, That's fine, but use the time intentionally. But once you step off that bus or that train, work stays there. And if you drive, leave work at work. When you get in that car, that's your reset moment. Take a few deep breaths, turn the music on, or sit in silence for a minute and tell yourself, work is handled for the day. I'm stepping into home mode. And if you need to, do it again before you open that car door. That moment, the hand on the door handle becomes the shift. You're not just walking into your house, you're transitioning from professional mode to mom mode or personal mode if your kids aren't home. Now, if you work from home, you don't get that natural commute, so you have to create that bridge on purpose. Close the laptop, stand up, change room, change clothes if you have to, step outside for 5 minutes. You need a physical shift in order to have that mental shift. So do whatever that looks like for you. I used to work out of my kitchen and I would leave a second monitor and my laptop on my kitchen counter. And it was just a constant reminder that work was always there. So I had to make it a priority to create a separate workspace. And that is honestly the best thing I did for myself. Now I have my little corner carved out in my family room. Work stays there. And at the end of the day, my work laptops, because I now have two, get tucked away and they are out of sight and out of mind. Number 3, contain work thoughts instead of fighting them. Let's talk about the biggest mistake most moms make, trying not to think about work. If I tell you, don't think about a pink elephant, what are you going to think about? The pink elephant. So trying to shut thoughts down ends up making them louder. So instead, contain them. You can keep a simple brain dump notes on your phone. When a thought pops up, you can write it down in your notes app and just tell yourself, this is safe. I'll handle it tomorrow. Your brain's job is to remember. So if you end up writing it down, you know you're not going to forget it and it helps you relax. You're not ignoring the responsibility, you're postponing it intentionally. And if you don't want to use your notes app, sometimes I just text the thought to myself or I send myself an email. Whatever works for you, just do it. Get it out of your brain and into your notes. Number 4, define what enough looks like. And this is a huge one. If enough is undefined, your brain is going to keep scanning for more. And if your job is anything like mine, there's always something else that needs to be done. So you need to have a cutoff point. And I promise you, your worth is not tied to how long or how many extra unpaid hours you put in or how much you think about work after hours. And honestly, if you're on a salary and don't get paid for all those extra hours, then you're actually diminishing your work because you're lowering your hourly pay rate. But what helps big time with defining what enough is determining what your top 3 priorities are each morning. I do this both for work and for my personal life because when you know what truly matters for the day, it helps sharpen your focus. And at the end of the day, if those 3 things are done or you intentionally adjusted one of those things because something else urgent came up, it becomes so much easier to walk away. And you're allowed to pivot when priorities shift. You may determine what your top 3 things are and then something urgent comes up, or as we refer to them in the corporate world, a fire drill comes up where you have to stop what you're working on and go handle that urgent thing. But that doesn't always mean that you now have to work late to tackle the other things that you marked as a priority, unless they are really time sensitive. And I'll be honest, I ended up working till 9 o'clock one day last week, but it's because I had a big presentation the next day that had a lot of data that I needed to validate. But I did take a break to eat dinner and spend some time with my family. And then I went right back to work. But working like that every day is not sustainable. And if it's once in a while, that's one thing. But if every day looks like that for you, then you really need to check out episode 104, 10 signs you need to look for another job. And if you're anything like me, it also helps to write down what you did accomplish, especially the things that weren't on your original list. Write them down, then cross them off, see the progress. It helps train your brain to recognize what moved forward instead of obsessing over what didn't. And at the end of the day, ask yourself, did I show up? Did I move something forward? Did I act with integrity? Did I try? All of that counts. You don't need to mentally replay the entire day to justify your paycheck. And thinking about work after hours does not make you more professional. It makes you more exhausted. And one more big tip, carve out 30 to 60 minutes at the end of your workday to tie up loose ends and set tomorrow's priority. That closing time block changes everything. And if you're not blocking out focus time on your calendar during the week, please start, because when your day ends with clarity, your evenings will begin with peace. I promise you. Number 5, clean up work boundaries during the day. Sometimes you can't mentally shut off at night because you were scattered all day. You were probably jumping between tasks, checking emails nonstop, starting things but not finishing them, saying yes to everything. If you want calmer evenings, you need clear work blocks during the day. For example, I get a lot of emails, way too many emails. I kind of hate emails, but if I stopped and I responded to every single one as soon as they came in, I would never really get any work done. So instead, I batch them. I block an hour every day to go through my emails and respond where I can. And I also check my email draft folders because sometimes I'll go to respond to an email and then get sidetracked or pulled into something. So I always check my draft folders before the end of the day to make sure that everything that I started gets cleared off my plate, because unfinished work creates mental noise. And back to blocking out focus time. Once you start blocking out time to focus and actually work on tasks, you have a much better chance of actually finishing tasks, closing the one out before you move on to the next. You end up sending that following up email. You could schedule those meetings. You could clarify expectations, because when you leave those loops open all day, your brain is going to try to close them at night. So focus blocks, close the loops. Number 6, check for unspoken anxiety. And this one is so important because sometimes work thoughts don't follow us home because we're bad at boundaries. They follow us home because something feels unresolved. And instead of dealing with it directly, we end up carrying it. Sometimes we're afraid of dropping the ball. Sometimes we don't feel fully confident in our role yet. Sometimes we didn't ask a clarifying question in a meeting because we didn't want to look unprepared. Sometimes we're people pleasing. Sometimes we're avoiding difficult conversations or trying to manage perceptions, and our brain keeps playing the situation because it's looking for safety. So when you notice a thought looping, instead of immediately trying to shut it down, pause and ask yourself, is there something I need to address here? Is there a conversation I need to have? Is there clarity I need to ask for? Is there feedback I need to follow up on? Is there a boundary I didn't communicate? Because sometimes mental boundaries require you to communicate. And if you're lying in bed replaying something you said in a meeting, maybe the next step is sending a follow-up email in the morning to clarify your point. If you're anxious about expectations, maybe you need to ask someone, can we align on what success looks like here? If you're feeling resentful because you said yes when you meant to say no, maybe it's time to reset that boundary, because avoidance fuels rumination. And that means you're replaying it, overanalyze it, mentally rehashing the same thing over and over and over. And your brain keeps looping because it wants that resolution and clarity. Even if it feels uncomfortable, it's going to quiet that anxiety faster than overthinking ever will. And please hear me when I say this. Asking for clarity does not make you look incompetent. It makes you look responsible. And setting boundaries does not make you difficult. It makes your life sustainable. And sometimes the reason you can't mentally shut off work is because there's a conversation waiting to be had. And I know firsthand what it's like to dread those difficult conversations. But you know what? Once you have it, your brain is going to finally exhale and you're going to feel so much better. Number 7, the right next step method. This one is huge, especially for those ambitious, high-achieving mamas out there, because when your brain spirals at night, it usually sounds like this. What if I forgot something? Oh, I totally messed that up. I should have said that differently. What if this blows up tomorrow? And here's what your brain is actually trying to do. It's trying to solve everything at once, but 10 o'clock in bed is not strategy time. So instead of letting your brain run wild, give it a job. Ask yourself, what is the right next step tomorrow? Not how do I fix everything, or how do I guarantee this works out, or how do I prevent every possible issue? Just what is the right next step? Maybe it's sending a clarification email, asking one follow-up question, review a document for 10 minutes, schedule a check-in, apologize if needed, or prepare a bullet point for a meeting. That's it, just one step. Because here's what happens when you do this. Your brain shifts from that vagueness, fear, to specific action. When you define the next step, your brain goes, oh, we have a plan. And once it knows there's a plan, it can rest. And again, you just need to decide the first move. And this applies beyond work too. If you're spiraling about money, next right step, look at your bank account. If you're spiraling about your health, next right step, schedule an appointment. If you're spiraling about your marriage, next right step, start a conversation, because clarity quiets the chaos. Number 8, technology audit. You cannot mentally shut off while your phone is inviting you back in. And if you have a separate work phone, then that's a lot easier to set those boundaries. You leave it in another room to charge or in your bag, or what I do is I just leave it in my desk drawer since I work from home. And if you don't have a separate work phone, then you really should get one. But if your emails are on your personal device, then you need to turn off those notifications after hours and on weekends. Remove your work apps from your home screen. And if you have multiple screens, put those bad boys all the way at the end, because the more friction you put between you and those apps, the absolute better for your mental health. And if you struggle in this area, please grab my Tech Timeout Guide for Moms. It's in the show notes. It is absolutely free. I share a bunch of tips on there to help you have better boundaries with your cell phone, but also turn off your email notifications after hours, set it to do not disturb, and please do not sleep with your work phone next to your bed unless you're on call. In my previous life, I was a property manager and I was on call and needed to answer those 3 a.m. phone calls about a pipe bursting. But if it's not in your job description, then don't add it there. Number 9, reclaim the weekends with intention. I really want to talk about weekends, especially the Sunday scaries, because weekends, they're not for catching up on work. They're for refilling your energy. And I know sometimes it feels productive to just clear one thing out. I used to work with a lot of moms that would just need to log on Sunday to clean out their inbox. But what that's teaching your brain is that work gets priority access. And then we wonder why Sunday anxiety shows up. So I want you to choose 1 or 2 weekend anchors, either family connection, movement, rest, or something that absolutely lights you up. And when your brain wanders back to work, and it will, I want you to redirect it to one of those anchors. And I want you to say to yourself, I'll handle that later. Right now, I'm here. Not with guilt, not with frustration, just intention. And to really help with this one, if you block the first hour or 2 of your Monday mornings as focus time, and that's when you spend time going through your emails, that's where you set yourself up for the week, your brain knows that you have that time blocked out and accounted for. And it's so much easier to convince yourself that everything can wait until Monday morning. And just a side note, if you are sending emails over the weekend or after hours as a manager to your staff, you are setting the tone and creating a culture that your team may feel that they need to follow. So it's really unhealthy for you and it's really unhealthy for them. And honestly, even with all these tips, it's not that you're never going to think about work again after hours or on weekend. That's not realistic. But what it's about is thinking about work less, thinking about it on purpose, and not letting it steal moments that it doesn't deserve. Your job matters, of course it does, but it doesn't get unlimited access to your evenings, to your weekends, to your family, or your peace. And I want to leave you with this. You don't need to earn rest. You don't need permission to unplug. And thinking about work after hours does not make you more responsible. It just makes you more depleted. Your kids, they deserve a present mom. Your marriage deserves a regulated partner. And you deserve a nervous system that feels safe to rest. Work matters, but I promise you, your life matters so much more. And balance, it doesn't happen accidentally. It happens intentionally. And if this episode resonated with you, I would love for you to share it with another working mom who needs that reminder too. Sending you so much love and light until next time on Mom, Wife, Career Life with Carrie Pat. Before you go, if you found this podcast helpful, I would be so grateful if you would take a minute, go on over to iTunes and leave me a review. If you have other stressed out mamas in your life that you feel this podcast could help, take a screenshot of this episode, post it on your Instagram stories and tag me, and let them know that they are not alone and they can create balance in their life too. If there's a topic you'd like me to cover or you just want to connect, DM me on Instagram at mom.wife.career.life or come on over and hang out in our free Facebook community, Work-Life Balance for Working Moms. Sending you so much love and light until next time on Mom, Wife, Career Life with Carrie Pat.